7:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and good morning to everyone, including Brian Wilson. Hey, Brian, thanks for waking up this morning for us.
Well, first of all, let me just get this out of the way.
I'm sorry, so sorry.
Apology accepted.
Yeah, well, I'll let Brenda Lee do my speaking for me.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I wish you could speak for me this morning. It's been a rough one.
Yeah, well, anyway, I do apologize. Look, I take it very seriously. I am one of these people. I'm never late. Back me up on this, Dan. Traditionally, I'm never late. I'm always early. My dad just drilled that into me when I was a kid. And
sure.
Believe me, I take it seriously. I don't know what happened last week. I was due to be on your show Wednesday, and I just overslept. This has only happened to me one other time in an entire 50-year career.
Yeah.
And I made it the last time. I was literally at my home, and I was supposed to be on the air at 5 a.m. When I was working in television, morning television in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up 30 minutes before the show was to begin, and I was 25 miles away.
Oh, no.
I made it.
Did you really?
The I-270 will never be the same, but I made it.
And you got through makeup and the whole thing? Because I know that, Brian, you required a lot of makeup.
I was putting makeup on as the intro to the show was going. I mean, as the intro to the show was going, I got sat down, I put on my earpiece, I was smearing makeup on my face, and then boom, I was on the air. I made it by the skin of my teeth.
Well Brian,
it's a good thing that I did, because my co-anchor said, if he's not here, I'm not going on.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? That actually did happen.
That sounds like you had a co-anchor problem. If you listen very closely, Brian, things are a little spooky around here today.
Oh, why is that, Dan?
Well, my TV is out in the studio, so I can't watch any news programs here on the morning show, which bothers me to no end. The Super Talk, the Super Text line is acting a little weird as well, because it's just, without getting into all of these specifics, it's just acting a little bizarre. And it's not the people texting in, it's the actual program. And we were having some problems earlier as well with some technical stuff. So I don't know if it's...
the gremlins in the system today, huh?
It could be, Brian, the gremlins in the system, or the low-budget nature of our radio station. It could be. You know who that is? That's actually Atlanta when we ask for more money. Moving right along, Speaking of things shutting down, let's talk about the government shutdown.
Yeah, look, I think it may come to a close. I think we're getting close. 13 times was not the charm. The 14th time may be the charm. They're gonna take another vote, and there's a new measure that's sort of floating around, coming from Senator Ron Johnson, not the Speaker of the House, but Ron Johnson, that would perhaps find favor with the Democrats, and we can move off dead center. It's silly. I think the Democrats are getting a little worried about it, and when you look at the polling, as I heard on the program earlier, there's polling that suggests this is really working well for Republicans and not so well for Democrats. So I think they're going to cry uncle. They'll say they fought the good fight. They'll find some way to spin it, but I think we may see this thing come to a close soon.
Is this the kind of thing, Brian, and you spent so many years in Washington, D.C., is this you used the word spin. So is it up to the Republicans to somehow give the Democrats a way out of this?
Well, you have to always give, find something that will work. Politics is the art of the possible. And sometimes it takes a while for people to feel the pressure of what is going on and to respond to it. I think there are a great number. I tell you where the Democrats are getting most of the noise from. The unions that represent federal workers and government workers. They're really worried about their membership, and they're putting a lot of pressure on the Democrats. And so the Democrats do respond to union pressure, and I think that's probably what will ultimately change this thing.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. One last question on the shutdown. So let's just say that in the next day or two, they are able to get this thing done before people lose their SNAP benefits for November.
Right.
If that happens, if they were able to pull something through before that and people get their benefits, well, then is it basically forgotten by the midterm elections?
I think so. I think people are not paying a great deal of attention to it anyway. Has it impacted anybody that you know? It hasn't impacted my life one whit.
It is impacted, government contractors and those kind of folks, but. You're right. It doesn't impact the vast
majority of
folks.
Americans. They're going, oh, the government's closed. They until it impacts their lives, they don't even notice really.
Let's talk about the ballroom. Now, I think it's funny, really, really funny that, and I'm sure you saw that it was Eric Swalwell that said that that's going to be a litmus test as to if you want to be the guy that or the person that is going to be the nominee for the Democrats, you've got to agree on day one to knock down Donald Trump's ballroom your first day in the Oval Office.
This is insane. I mean, I read an article, a really nice article that had gone back and talked about all the administrations who have whined and moaned, and the Democrat, Republican alike, about the fact that they don't have a space that is big enough for state-level events at the White House. They just simply don't. We've sort of outgrown that, and you can't in the East Room. You can't put in more than about 200 people. And, for a big state dinner, you probably want more than 200 people. I think they need that space. They've been whining about it, and Democrats and Republicans alike have been talking about it for years. And it's just because it's Trump, that the Democrats lose their mind. If this had been done during the Obama administration, nobody would have said a word.
Let me ask you, because you spent a lot of time in D.C. Have you ever had the occasion to attend an event in that big tent that they talk about, if they have something there at the White House?
That wasn't used in the years that I was there with Clinton and later with when I was at the White House on a regular basis. No, but I did go to several events in the East Room that were state dinners. As a reporter, they would always send somebody in for the remarks, and I did that a couple of times. So it's a big dog deal, but it is cramped in that room, believe it or not, for a state dinner. It's a big room, but not big enough for what you really need. So do
you think that the Democrats will eventually come to their senses and say, you know what, we are not going to spend taxpayer dollars tearing something down that was free to put up?
Yeah, I can't imagine at the end of the day that they will think that's the right thing to do. I think there would be outrage. I mean, really, honestly, there is nothing particularly historic about what has been torn down thus far. And I think they will, get over it.
Well, the East Wing, home to, would they say these are just sort of like, offices, random offices, and where the First Lady has offices.
If you've ever been to the White House complex as a guest, when reporters come in through the Northwest Gate, but when there's a social event, you have to go through the East entrance, and it basically is an area where you get screened. You walk through. There's some nice offices there. I think there was a library. There was a room that was full of dishes, and stuff like that, dishes and silverware and that kind of stuff. The stuff that you need to put on a ball. But I didn't find anything particularly, compelling about that particular part of the White House, nor particularly historic. Right?
Yeah, historic. All right, Brian, real quick. The Donald Trump, Steve Bannon threw something out there the other day talking to the BBC about how they are working behind the scenes to compel a reason why Donald Trump should be able to run for a third term. Constitution bedarned. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen. And even if you listen carefully to the words of Donald Trump on the plane, he said this. I want to make sure you hear this because it definitively answers the question. Here's Donald Trump on Air Force One.
If you read it, it's pretty clear. I'm not allowed to run. It's too bad. I missed it. But we have a lot of great people.
I'm not allowed to run, he says.
It's too bad,
pretty
he
clear.
says. Yeah, but and he also said, and this was my whole point, we got J.D. Vance, we got Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
In all the years, Brian, let me ask you this. It might be unfair, but in all your years of covering politics, have you seen a more formidable ticket than a J.D. Vance at the top and Marco Rubio in the vice presidential role?
Listen, I've always been a big fan I've been a long-time fan of Marco Rubio. I think he's an adult. He's serious. I was surprised, having been around him some and have covered him for many years, I was really surprised that people say that Marco Rubio has a tremendous sense of humor because he doesn't really often express it in public. But apparently he's a very likable and a very funny man, and a man who is competent beyond measure. I mean, look at all the different jobs he's holding down, and he's just crushing it. I've always been impressed with the intellect of Marco Rubio. And then you got J.D. Vance, who has, become really quite an important figure in this administration. And I think, Vance and Rubio, and there are about 3 or 4 others on the front bench line who would make great candidates. You could do a lot worse than J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio.
Well, and I made the case a while ago that if you just look at paper, you just look at resumes, Marco Rubio actually makes more sense from a paper standpoint, from a resume standpoint, to be at the top of the ticket.
He's got more foreign policy experience, and because he's on the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, and so he understands that stuff. But he's also a serious student. When he got into office, he set about to try to learn everything he can learn. And he, there's not many topics that you can throw at Marco Rubio that he doesn't have a pretty good answer for. I think he's a great candidate. I think he would be fantastic. And I think actually from an experience standpoint, might actually have better experience than J.D. Vance.
Yeah, I mean, I think J.D. Vance is so affable and he is so eloquent. And in my opinion, he's very likable. And he is clearly being groomed, if you will, for the presidency. Matter of fact, Donald Trump, you may recall, said one time during a cabinet meeting, now, Marco, you're not going to run for anything in the future, right? I mean, kind of joking as that whole debate was heating up within the conservative movement. All right, real quick, drug boats. And
I'm for it. Let's keep. Yeah, I got a story here that says that they got, 4 more?
Yeah, they got 4 more in the last 24 hours, I think.
It's unbelievable. I mean, this has got to be hurting the drug cartels and doing real damage over in Venezuela and places like that. I'm wondering, though, I read a story that I thought was pretty interesting. Why are they not going against the Mexican cartels, which may really be one of the greater problems for us? They're a trading partner. They're a valued trading partner. It would really strain relationships if they took action on land inside Mexico. So I don't know that they want to do that, but they're really having an impact, and I'm for it. I mean, if these are narco-terrorists who are bringing this stuff into our country and to other countries around the world, and I just don't have a problem at all with using the military for it. I think that if we do this in other places around the world, in Yemen and in other places, if we detect a threat to our national security or to our troops, we just take action. We do what needs to be done. Nobody says a word about that. Why all of a sudden is there a problem when they want to go after the narco-terrorists?
Well, it's funny and sad where you have the Democrats and the media and who they side with, right? So they're siding with illegal alien gang members. They're siding with narco-terrorists as well. I mean,
the brilliant thing that Donald Trump has done is he's realized that if you just take common sense approaches to things, and I would say that many of his proposals and his policies are just good common sense. They're the right way to go. But if you take a good policy that's going to resonate well with the American people, and because it has come from Donald Trump, Democrats are automatically going to hate it. I mean, and they keep finding themselves defending really bizarre positions. And I don't know how, it's just not working out well for them. Democrats are in complete free fall. And they're really, if they lose this battle over the budget, what can you point to the Democrats have done in any way that's positive except whine about the very popular proposals that are put forth by the Trump administration?
So and I've only got like a minute left, but how do you, when all this is said and done, and obviously we have to wait to see what happens, but how do you determine who won and who lost in the budget battle?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, if they end up putting back in the money for the illegal aliens who've come to this country for their medical care and stuff like that, I think then you would have to say the Republicans blinked. But if at the end of the day we fund the government, but we don't fund medical care for people who are in this country illegally, I think it's a win for Republicans and a big loss for Democrats.
All right, Brian Wilson, always great to have you on, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday at this time or sooner.
I promise you I'll be here.
Brian, real quick, favorite Halloween candy?
I'm a big fan of the Kit Kat. I'm a big fan of just plain old chocolate Hershey's.
Okay.
But I think Tootsie Rolls.
Okay.
I'm in a Tootsie Roll kick right now.
Okay, very good. And you got big inflatables out there in Watertown?
Not a one.
Not a one.
I haven't put any up, but I'll be standing at the door on Halloween handing out candy. I haven't normally gotten to do that.
Yeah.
Because of the shift that I was working.
Sure,
before,
but this time it's on Friday night.
I'm sort of looking forward to seeing all the kids.
All right, very, very good. And, with your height, you could put on a great Frankenstein costume. And
normally that's where I go if I need a costume.
That's exactly.
Although I'm going to a Christmas party and I'm going as Buddy the Elf.
Are you really?
I'll make a great Buddy the Elf, I promise you.
You giving out full-size candy bars? You going miniature?
Miniature. We're worried about the health of the children in our neighborhood.
You're amateur. I'm kidding, Brian. I'm kidding. You'll notice the shocked silence of Brian Wilson.
Yes.
Kidding, Brian. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
I want to welcome on into the program Jonathan Fahey, former acting director of ICE under Donald Trump's first administration, and our guest. And Jonathan, I find this whole thing fascinating, and I don't know why. But all over the place, you see these headlines that Border Czar Tom Homan and the head of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, they are apparently at odds over what's next in this battle against illegal immigration and who to deport. Now, there's also been a big shakeup amongst the leadership there within the Department of Homeland Security. But apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kristi Noem, this is what the media is reporting, so that I want your perspective on this. The media is reporting that Kristi Noem wants to focus more on total number of deportations, whereas Tom Homan, Border Czar, of course, he wants to focus on, the gangbangers and the drug dealers. Have you heard about this? From your insight, tell me what your take is.
Yeah, I've only heard about it just from tracking it on the news, and it is an interesting development, but a lot of it is sort of, what are people saying behind the scenes? But it does seem like the administration wants to at least raise the number of people being deported, particularly in these certain areas where they replace people that were head of field offices. So they want to get the numbers up. I don't think the focus is being taken away from the most serious criminals. They're probably just adding other people. And one thing to keep in mind, CBP and ICE got a whole bunch of new resources. So they're able to really, in essence, do both. And I think one of the things that we're seeing, the most important thing, when you look at these border numbers, I think I was just watching on Fox, 600,000 have been deported or 500,000, but then 1.2 million people have self-deported.
Yep.
And I think that's the most important number because if you think about it, that's what we want to have happen, right? That's the easier route. It's easier for the people leaving and also easier for law enforcement. And what that also means is if we are deporting people here illegally, no one's going to, not literally no one, but very few people are going to take the risk to try to get here illegally if they know the result is going to be you're going back home. And under the previous administration, which we've talked about a ton, the rule was if you get here illegally, you're, for all intents and purposes, a U.S. citizen, or often treated much better because you never get defamed by the administration. So I think, a lot of those things are going on, but I think ultimately, they're still going to be going after the most serious criminals. They want, and we're only at this point deporting maybe with the self-deports and the people deported. We're only going to hit about 2 million this year, which is still under what Biden was bringing in illegally, up to 3-4 million a year.
So here's my question then, because that is true. I mean, there have been, Donald Trump promised, I believe, more deportations than we're seeing. But in defense of the president, he's doing the best he can under a mountain of lawsuits and litigation. That's a big part of the issue.
Yeah, it really, everyone is fighting against him, meaning, the mainstream media, the Democrat politicians, all of these local officials are fighting against him. And they would certainly have maybe a leg to stand on the first issue we talked about if they actually cooperated in getting rid of the criminals. But in fact, they stand in the way. You look at, Chicago's the best example, Pritzker and Brandon Johnson. They stand in the way of even getting rid of the most serious criminals, gang members and things like that. They are so full on open borders, and I think they are reflective not of the American people, but of where the Democratic Party is, which is their lesson they learned from that last election was double down on open borders and amnesty, and they've put all of their chips in that, it seems to me.
One of the things, and I read this, where in Chicago, not shocking, the head of the operations there in Chicago, the local, no doubt corrupt Democrat lawmakers in Chicago are demanding that every single day the head of the operation for ICE go to them and report what has happened that day. Have you ever seen that before?
No, this is completely insane. This is this judge out in Illinois that they had this consent decree entered under Joe Biden, which basically, DOJ conceded that ICE had been doing bad things. Really, they just didn't want ICE deporting people. And now it still continues, and this judge essentially wants to run ICE and say what they can and can't do, when they could use things like tear gas. And it's absolutely crazy because, one, she doesn't have the expertise. And when you're on the ground as a law enforcement official, as most people understand, they have to make split-second decisions when their lives are in danger and have to do things based on the best judgment they have, based on what's going on the ground, not based on what some judge wants to be happening. But it's completely insane. It's complete overreach. It's a major separation of powers issue. And I think where this judge will run it, I think there will be some appeals on this. But the problem with this judge, if ultimately the administration doesn't comply, what she can do is try to hold people in contempt. Problem for the judge is when somebody's held in contempt, it's referred over to the Department of Justice, DOJ, to prosecute the case for contempt, and they could just simply say, we're not doing so. Or President Trump could just say, I'm pardoning all of these people, so therefore you can't do anything. And I think this is going to come to a head pretty soon because it's an absolute overreach. It's completely ridiculous.
Jonathan Fahey is our guest, and Jonathan, coming up, this headline, rather alarming. Could ICE have lost, and they have the word lost in air quotes, 3,000 immigrant arrestees in Chicago? And it is raining badly. I just walked outside, and it's coming down here in downtown Middle Tennessee.
Did you leave your windows down again?
No, I didn't leave my... Thank you, Sam, for bringing that up. Shut up, Joan.
Okay, sorry.
I love hearing Joan in the background mocking me. So, Jonathan, last time it rained really bad here. For the second time in my almost 12 years here at the radio station, massive pouring down rain, and the genius here on the morning show, I left my windows down.
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and it took me a long time to not only get it cleaned out, but get the smell out and all that, and whatever.
But you'll never live it down.
I will never live it down.
There you go.
It's funny because I never lived it down the first time, and now the second time I have even more not to live down. Anyway, Jonathan Fahey. Could ICE have lost 3,000 immigrant arrestees in Chicago? 7 weeks ago, Midway Blitz began, and now they're questioning, even as arrests continue, where are these 3,000 people that have supposedly been arrested? They've got attorneys and human rights investigators tracking all of this, and their claim is that the Trump administration doesn't necessarily know where they are. They're even calling this thing quite dire. What do you know about this?
Yeah, I've just started reading, was reading about it recently, so I don't really know that much about it. I don't think they're actually lost if they were detained and arrested, but, there are a lot of people getting arrested, and, I'm sure they're detained in some local facility or ICE detention facility or something like that. I don't think they're literally lost, and I don't think they've been deported or they haven't been deported. But I ultimately don't think they were lost. I also think whenever these stories come out the first time, it's never you go through like one news cycle and it turns out to be either 100% false or partially false.
Exactly.
So that, I think that's what will happen here, but it remains to be seen.
All right. So, and this is the way, because you hit it spot on, where it's like, okay, so the Trump administration lost 3,000 arrestees, they say, but then in maybe a week or two after the hysteria dies down, the clarification will be a little, never mind. Meantime, by the way, all these same people that were freaking out about these 3,000 arrestees had no angst about the 100,000 children that the Biden administration lost, according to the New York Times, during the Biden administration. By the way, this sentence says it all. On Monday, they tell NBC Chicago investigative teams the U.S. government officials won't or can't tell them where at least 3,000 arrestees are right now. So we'll keep folks updated on that story. But I think that, right now, the Trump administration, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've got the court cases going on in California, in Oregon, in Illinois. And it's just sort of like, I feel like the Trump administration is having to play whack-a-mole with all of these leftist judges who are trying to prevent ICE from doing their job.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's exactly what these judges are doing. They're using the pretext, and what the people filing these lawsuits are doing is, the pretext of some violation or something else. But their real goal is to keep the illegal aliens in the country. And I think everyone needs to just keep that in mind. Their goal, as the Democrats, are massive illegal immigration, mass amnesty for everyone here, and that's what they're doing. And these are these are methods to achieve that.
Well, and the reason, of course, being that eventually they want them to vote Democrat, and that's something that we've spoken about for a long time. And of course, we also have a lot of people leaving these cities and leaving these states specifically because of these problems. And Jonathan Fahey, always great to have you on. How can people follow you on X?
On John for Fairfax.
All right, John for Fairfax on X. And if you want to follow me, you can find him and follow Jonathan Fahey. I always see Jonathan on Fox News as well, and I always appreciate his insight.